Hello and welcome back to the Pursuing Freedom podcast. This is your host, Erin Bradley. And if it's your first time here, perfect timing. Isn't that the best? Because something we've learned is that most of the best things in life were actually unscripted. So you're right on time. You're here for a reason. And if you are in the real estate space and it's your first time listening to the Pursuing Freedom podcast, we are all about a very important theme here, which is to simplify in order to amplify. What I mean by that is how can we truly simplify our efforts, work less, hustle less, grind less, while we contribute more with more clarity, more ease, more impact, more focus, more enthusiasm, so that we can amplify our results and grow our business without the fear of exhaustion, sacrifice, burnout, and all the other things that are an epidemic in the real estate space. So, what we've decided to do to really help you access the tangible action steps that you can apply in your own business so that it feels really good, because we all know what it feels like to go to a sales training and be given the playbook of what we're supposed to be doing. And then we wake up on Monday morning or any morning of the week and we say to ourselves, what should I do today? What could I do today? I need to get more business. I need more leads. And from this place of need, which is a me problem, I try to push through the insecurity, the resistance, the dread, the procrastination, and take some action in the search of the leads that are going to turn into the deals that are going to become the paychecks that are going to give me the permission to feel confident, safe, whole, and at ease. But at Pursuing Freedom, we believe there's a better way. And it's all about reverse engineering the process. So rather than I've got a problem to solve, what should I do so that I can get, so that I can feel, we look at how do I create a business plan that feels so good there is no resistance, dread, or procrastination. In fact, I love it so much I can't help but jump into action, because truly, we all know if you're listening to this podcast, chances are you're a self-employed person, or maybe you're considering it, which means you've already taken the risk to forego the steady paycheck. And you've learned probably that this isn't the easy route. We could all go get a job at this point. We could go get a job where we're told where to be and what time, and in exchange for going there on time and doing what's expected of us, we can expect a steady paycheck. But that's not the choice we made, is it? It's not the route we took. We maybe took the road less traveled, and here we are, self-employed, and we're facing the reality, which is the uncertainty, the inconsistency, and sometimes the exhaustion, the overwhelm, the burnout, the sacrifice, and all the things. And so Pursuing Freedom is all about changing that narrative, because freedom, as we've talked about in previous episodes, has a feeling. And it's all about those feelings of ease and present moments. In fact, presence, we've been talking a lot about inside my coaching community. Presence is the gift that you can give to others, both in your personal life and your business. And it's also one of the most challenging things to not only experience, but to share, because we live in such a distracted society. And our industry is one of the most distracted of all, because there are so many shiny objects, there's so much noise, so much busyness and reactivity, and all of that is leading to the inconsistency that feeds the uncertainty, the insecurity, the overwhelm, and the fear. So we're here to help create a new reality for you, and you don't have to earn the right to experience more ease, joy, and presence in your business, while also gaining the confidence and the expectation that this can be consistent. Because if you're of the mindset that it's never going to be consistent, then I don't know why anybody would keep doing it. So if even people that have been in the business for 10, 20, 30 years have been riding that roller coaster, the seesaw of feast or famine, because it's all they've ever known. And because it's all we've ever known, we believe deep down inside it's the only way it can be. But the whole reason I started this podcast in 2018 is because I know from taking chances and making decisions with fear along for the journey, along for the ride, that on the other side of different decisions and a new way of looking at things and a new way of operating, there is the opportunity for exponential growth financially and the opportunity to do it without the sacrifice, the exhaustion, and the burnout. You can actually grow your business exponentially with ease and have fun doing it. And if it wasn't true, I wouldn't have spent the last 8 years creating this podcast. So, what I decided to do, because I think a lot of people maybe wonder what is the benefit of getting into a coaching program, getting into a community? What am I really going to get out of it? Because inspiration is one thing, but tangible results is what I really want. So we decided that we're going to start to give you some sneak peeks behind the curtain of what my program teaches real estate professionals and how you can apply it in your own life and business, whether we ever meet in person or not. Although I hope we do, because it's really fun inside my community, especially for me to be able to see when the lights come on, when people start having more fun, when people start seeing growth in their business with more ease, with more energy, with more enthusiasm, and it is contagious, right? We all know that negativity can be contagious. Guess what? So can positivity. And that's what you'll find inside the Pursuing Freedom community. And so, what we're going to talk about today is a very specific thing that I teach all of my clients. First things first, right? And again, it doesn't matter if you just got licensed or you've been at this for decades. You can always start today with a clean slate. And if you've been in the business a long time, you can also recognize, okay, knowing what I know now, what aspect of this business has been draining? What has been energizing? What have I loved? What have I not loved? Where am I doing things because they have to be done, but I don't really find a lot of joy in doing it? But because I'm a motivated, driven professional, I'm going to do the things because they have to be done and I'm going to try not to complain about it. But if I'm honest, it's sucking the life out of me. Okay. So if you've experienced that, this is a perfect time to say to yourself, I get to decide. I get to design the business of me. And in my opinion, the business of you is the only business worth building. So I want you to take a moment to first embrace the possibility that that this could exist, that you can design a business that feels really good and that creates consistent growth in your income. Because unless you believe it, it doesn't matter what I tell you to do. You've got to believe it in order to achieve it. And I don't know who said that, but it's famous, so I didn't write it. But here we go. What we want to talk about first and foremost is your who. So often, when we take the leap of faith and we get our license and we forego the steady paycheck, our first thought is, I'll take any client. And this is a problem because it's how we start. And how we start, which is from a place of uncertainty, not knowing if I'm ever going to have a closing or have a paycheck, is often how we continue. And it becomes what we settle for, which is clients that don't respect us, clients that don't have boundaries, all these different things. And in the end, if we look back, it's often because when you began the journey, you didn't have any clarity around who your ideal client was, and you didn't have any boundaries. So why should we expect others to create boundaries for us? We are the business owner. It's our job to create the boundaries. That's a whole nother podcast. But for today, I want to talk about who you want to serve. Now, a lot of times when we start going down this road, some of my clients will have resistance because they'll say things like, I like a lot of different clients. I'm happy working with first-time home buyers, but I also like the downsizing people and I like the retirees and I love the empty nesters, and they start rattling off all the things. And I'm like, okay, don't worry. Because as we get clear on who your ideal customer avatar is, and we show you how to customize a communication strategy that gets you engaging with and bringing value to the individuals in your life that are energizers for you, it will not pigeonhole your business. And I'll share an example of that later, and even in my own life, but it will not pigeonhole you. What it will do is it will amplify your energy, because from a place of authenticity to serve people you really care about, you'll start to feel more inspired, more creative, more connected, more present, more alive in the work itself. And what that does is it turns you into a lighthouse. Now, something that we've been working on with our very experienced realtors and lenders is all around systems and scale. And the idea that you don't have to remain the operator in every single department in your business. And that in most industries, you have different departments, right? You have the CEO and you have the COO and you have the CMO, right? And you have the accounting department, the marketing department, the operations, technology, and all the things, right? But a lot of times in the real estate and mortgage space, you're wearing all of those hats. And what we look at when we're working with those who have that level of experience is to simply step back and say, where do you find yourself most energized and with whom? Because the chances are you've been doing so much for so long that you don't even realize that you've been running on fumes. And what that does is it dims the light within you. And so we try to help real estate professionals move into the role that's often referred to as the rainmaker in this industry. I don't know why, but I don't love that word. And so recently I decided that lighthouse just feels like a better word, right? So lighthouse is where my energy and my light within me is so visible, is so vibrant that it can't be ignored. And when I turn that light on is when I'm in the service of the people that bring light to my life, right? So instead of organizing our database from a place of personal agenda, are they going to buy or sell? And what's their price point? I like to organize my database from a perspective of, do they put a smile on my face when I think of them? And so we're going to start right there. So the first piece of homework is to organize your CRM or your database. Now, if you don't have a client relationship manager, a CRM, that's fine. If you just make a list on an Excel spreadsheet, it really doesn't matter. You can make a list on a piece of paper. It doesn't matter how archaic it is. All that matters is that we start with a clean slate. And I want you to think about your favorite people in your life. Now, these can be past clients if you have been in the business for a while. If you haven't been in the business for a while, these can just be individuals in your life that every time you hang out with them or you talk to them, you leave a little more energized than drained, because we all have people in our lives that we love dearly. But if we're honest, sometimes those interactions can leave us feeling more drained than energized. So we're going to start with this. I want you to literally think of at least one person. I did this activity with one of my one-on-one coaching clients the other day, and it was really fun. So he gave me the names of a couple that he has worked with in the past. And we literally wrote their names down on a piece of paper. And then I had him describe them characteristically. So, what are their personality traits? How would you describe them? And so we went down the list. Now, when I play this game for myself, the words that often come to mind when I think about the person I'm describing is they're high vibe, they're positive, they're easygoing, fun, adventurous, funny, growth oriented, ambitious, lovely, thoughtful, caring, kind. Okay, we can go on and on, but I don't want to steer you. I want you to do this activity for yourself. So even if you're driving right now, I just want you to think about one person in your life that is that type of relationship for you, that every time you hang out with them, you leave better than you started. Okay. And then start to think about the adjectives you would use to describe them. And then what starts happening is you are awakening the reticular activating system in your brain, also known as the RAS, RAS, okay? The reticular activating system in your brain, if you're not aware of this, is the part of your subconscious that you can program to notice things that you want it to look for, okay? So the easiest example of this would be when you think about buying a new car. So I drive a Lexus RX 350. Okay. When I decided that was the car I wanted to buy, I started noticing them all over the road. Now, before that, I was driving a Nissan Pathfinder, and I always noticed Nissan Pathfinders around the road, but I wasn't noticing the Lexus RX 350. Okay. It doesn't mean that the Lexus wasn't on the road before. It's just that I wasn't noticing it because I hadn't literally programmed my brain to notice it. But the moment I put attention on it, I saw them everywhere. They didn't just suddenly appear, they just were suddenly noticeable by my brain. It's if you're a real estate agent and you're in line at the grocery store and the people in front of you are having a conversation and all of a sudden you hear them talking about how they're buying a new house, your ears would perk up immediately because your reticular activating system is programmed to listen for real estate opportunities. However, if that couple in front of you was talking about the decision they're making about what daycare they're going to put their kids in, it would probably be like white noise in the background. You wouldn't even notice it. And this is such an interesting thing because as it relates to designing your business around people that you love so that you can truly design the landscape of the garden that is your business, which I'll come back to, you have to think about this. And so when you think about one example of a person that already exists in your life and you start writing out the adjectives, what you're doing is you're creating criteria. What's also going to happen is as you start to put attention on those characteristics, it's going to remind your brain of everyone else you already know who's a match for that criteria. So you're essentially creating a filter through which you determine if someone is a match for you. Now, if you're listening to this and you're feeling like you're stuck, you're in a slump in your business, or you're just getting started, you might think this is crazy because you're thinking, I will work with anybody. I just need a paycheck. And I get that. I've been there before. But what I'm telling you here is that when you put attention on it like this and intention behind it, you end up creating a velocity of opportunity because you start to awaken to the reality that there are infinite possibilities right in front of your face. You just didn't notice them before because you hadn't programmed your reticular activating system to see it, if that makes sense. So when I say that there's a filter and that there's criteria to determine if someone's a match for you, the reason I say that is because one of the best pieces of advice I got from a coach back in 2015, which has stuck with me ever since. And if you've ever been in any of my trainings or workshops, you've probably heard me talk about this. And it's the 25% rule. Now, when I heard this, I had already been in the business for 11 years, and it changed everything for me from a place of what I started talking about at the beginning here, which is the idea of running a business with ease. So the 25% rule is that 25% of people will love you no matter what, and you probably know who they are. Personally or professionally, it doesn't really matter. Your 25% are those people that are always cheering for you, that are always in your corner, and they love you no matter what. And you probably love them too. And 25% never will love you no matter what. And you probably know who they are too. And then the 50% in between are your fair weather friends, or they just haven't met you yet. But the interesting thing about this is when you think about that, that's 1 out of 4 people. So now let's think of the last time you had a client that was shopping around. And right out of the gates, you could feel that the energy was off. It wasn't a slam dunk. They didn't trust you. You felt like you had to explain yourself or prove your worth. And you deep down inside were second guessing if they were going to pick you. And then when they didn't pick you, it really hurts, right? And it deflates us. And this is a problem because we don't have room for us to walk around being deflated because our energy is our currency. So we need to be energized. And I'm not saying that we don't get the wind knocked out of our sails. Of course we do. We're human beings. What I'm saying is, after learning that, I started to become a more clear witness that when somebody didn't pick me, I could just say, thank you, universe, not my 25%. Because the truth is that when we convince someone to work with us who's really not a match for our criteria, our filter, we spend the entire transaction trying to prove ourselves to the point of exhaustion, depletion, sacrifice, right? We compromise our boundaries. They overstep our boundaries. Maybe we don't have any to begin with, but we all know what that feels like. It's out of alignment from the moment we meet them all the way through to the end of the transaction. And the problem with that is sometimes you've probably heard the expression, the energy vampire, is that while they're sucking our energy and our attention, and sometimes robbing us of our happy emotions, right? What are they doing? They're taking us away from the opportunity to be available for more people that are a match for the 25% rule. And we talk also inside of our community around tracking your results and tracking your activity. And one of the things I always like to track is how many leads per week am I getting? So what I found as a very conservative ratio or metric is that the number of leads per week is roughly equivalent to the number of closings per month in as little as 60 to 90 days, because it doesn't go from I got a referral to I have a closing tomorrow, right? There's a journey between the initial conversation or the initial lead to the closing table. And so, what I like about that is I can focus on my day to day activity and I can pay attention to my results this week. And then what I'm seeing this week is informing me about where my business is going to be in the next 2 to 3 months. So, if I start to see velocity and momentum, an increase in leads per week, I can start making decisions and planning to invest back into my business. So I have a stronger foundation when the number of closings per month starts to increase, which is going to help us get off of that seesaw of feast or famine. Again, a topic for another podcast, but there's a coming full circle to the 25% rule is that the conservative ratio is that if 50% of my leads actually turn into a meeting. So let's say if you're a lender, if 50% of my leads actually apply for a mortgage, and if 50% of those applications close, then if my goal is to consistently have 5 closings a month in the next 60 to 90 days, then that means I want to have 10 applications in a month, which means I need 20 leads. And if I divide that by 4 weeks, it's 5 leads a week. Same goes for if I want 15 closings a month in the next 2 to 3 months. If that's that's where I want to go. I want to be averaging 15 closings a month. That means I need to be averaging 30 applications a month or 60 leads a month. Divide that by 4 weeks, it's 15 leads a week. But what is that also? It's 25%. This is so calming because number one, that's a conservative ratio. When we really tracked our numbers, we were converting more than 75% of our leads were applying and roughly 80% of our applications were closing. So we needed less leads per week to have the same number of closings per month. And it's data, right? But it also comes back to this. If we keep it simple, that means that only 1 out of 4 of my leads are probably going to close. And that just helps me chill out a little bit. And it also helps me focus. And focus is everything because if I'm focused and I'm energized and I'm enthused about who I want to serve, then I can not be bothered by those who are not a match for me. And I can go all in with this landscape design concept I was talking about. So when I talk about landscape design, what I want you to imagine is a garden in the springtime. So if you live in a climate where there's a winter, then every spring, the garden is a mess. There's weeds, there's things that come up every year that maybe have always been there. There's probably shrubs that have been there since you moved in that you've never even evaluated whether you like it or not. It's just always been there. And then you have the things that you plant that you really enjoy. And we start by plucking the weeds, right? So as you're listening to this, I want you to ask yourself, when is the last time you cultivated the garden that is your database? When was the last time you went in and evaluated? If I'm being really honest, is this person, when I see their name, do I feel energized? Is this a hell yes for me? Is this my 25%? Or is this person's fine and they did a deal with me, so I should probably keep in touch with them because the sales trainer said I should make my calls or write my notes, but every time I go to call them, I just don't feel like it. You can feel energetically that there's something off there. Give yourself permission to let that be okay. You don't necessarily have to pluck everyone out of your database as it relates to your email marketing, your physical mailing, your social media relationships. But if you wanted to design a business that you love, I would recommend you pluck out 75% and you're left with the 25% that love you no matter what, that also represent that hell yes energy. It would be a blast to spend time with this person, whether they needed my services or not, right? So we take our personal agenda out of it. And this is, again, this is very counterintuitive, right? It goes against a lot of what we've been taught in the real estate space, which is that we're going to evaluate the relationships in our database or in our garden based on what we can get from them. And I have seen it time and again. That is the thing that creates the bottleneck in the execution of the engagement, meaning staying in touch, bringing value, whether they need your services or not, is that we're so tied to the outcome or the lack thereof, or the lack of potential outcome because we know they don't need to buy or sell right now, that we simply don't take the action, right? So we lose touch with people that we care about just because we assume they don't need our services. And I would say that if you're worried about being salesy, I think it's more salesy to make a new friend through a transaction. And then the moment you get paid, you never talk to them again. than it is to keep in touch. Like, why not keep in touch and find other ways to be of value to people when they don't need your services? Wouldn't you think that if there's authenticity there and if they represent your 25%, they love you no matter what, they're really happy to hear from you and they're not saying things like, oh, you must be really salesy because you're calling me? No. You know what it feels like when you meet somebody and it's an instant friendship, it's an instant connection. There's sincerity there, okay? This is what we want to build upon. So go back to your database and start to organize it. Like I said, only pluck the weeds, if you will, if they're really negative energy. And I do believe that. I do believe in deleting people from the database that were just really terrible to work with. But there's plenty of people out there that represent the 50% in between. They're fine. And they may come back and use my services. I'm not going to stop marketing to them. I'm not going to take them out of my CRM, but I'm going to be really intentional with my 25% because if I could wave a magic wand, I'd want to plant the relationships that I love into my garden and I'd want to nurture them and provide them the appropriate nourishment because a seed planted in the soil that isn't watered and doesn't have sunlight and doesn't have nutrients never sprouts. But the seeds that are planted and nourished, they sprout and sometimes they multiply. And that would be an ideal business, in my opinion. So that's what we're about. So let's go one step further. So you've got the idea here. You're starting to understand that there's a reticular activating system that's going to awaken you to the reality that there are plenty of people in your life, whether or not they need your services today, that represent your 25%. The next step would be to say, what else do I know about them? Now, you may have heard in trainings the acronym FORD or FROG. They mean the same thing. FORD stands for Family, Occupation, Recreation, Dreams. FROG is Family, Recreation, Occupation, Goals. So what do you know about them? What do you know about what they do for a living? What about their family? What about some of their goals? What do they do for fun? Okay. This is really important because we apply the 25% rule not just with our clients, but with our colleagues, the service providers we refer, potential team members, right? I always tell people when you're hiring, yes, we want to hire somebody who's going to enjoy tasks in the business that we don't enjoy and who could be good at that. But more importantly, we want to hire to the values. If we want any experience that someone has with someone on our team, in our company, our organization, even if our organization is only 2 people, if we want every interaction to feel consistent, then we're hiring to those characteristics, that they're friendly, they're kind, they're thoughtful, they're growth oriented, they're supportive, they're fun, they're funny, whatever. This criteria becomes the filter through which I determine whether anyone is a match for me in my professional life. Okay. It is really important too, because this came up again on another VIP call the other day where someone was talking about their vendor list as a real estate agent. They have a vendor list. And I said to them, okay, let's come back to the frog question. What do you know about their family? What do you know about what they do for fun? Do you know how long they've been in the business? How they got into the business? Where does most of their business come from? What are some of their goals for 2026? What are some of the challenges that they face? Do you know the human being behind the job title? Because if you're listening and you know that taking the leap of faith to forego the steady paycheck has left you in a state of uncertainty, or that you've experienced overwhelm or stress or burnout or fear, any of those things, I always joke, you're not special, you're just human, right? So our job title doesn't define us as an individual or as a human being. At the human level, we're all in this together. So my challenge for all of my coaching students is drop the vendor list and start building relationships with other service providers, okay? Because there's a human being behind that job title. And if you can get to the human level and you can find a way to be of value to them where they need it, not based on what you can get from it, you will solve the issue of frustration around lack of reciprocity for all the people that you give referrals to and don't get referrals in return. You can cure that problem by building relationships. And I think a lot of us miss this. A lot of real estate professionals are so focused only on the individuals that represent a paycheck in the near future that they lose touch with the relationships that represent the 25%. Then they feel guilty because it's been too long and they're afraid to reconnect with people, even though These people love you no matter what. And even though they're not judging you, and you wouldn't judge them if they called you out of the blue and said, it's been a while and I hope you're doing well. And I just wanted to say hello, right? So we don't need to judge or make up a judgment, right? So we often lose the opportunities that exist right in front of our face because we're only paying attention to the people that represent a paycheck here in the near future. But the truth of the matter is, your 25% spans across all kinds of relationships. Your 25% could be on the sideline of your kids' sporting events. They could be your former coworkers. They could be the people you know at church. This is not about how do I get a deal out of this. This is about human relationships and building a business that you love that feels energized, authentic, high momentum, high velocity, consistent relationships, consistent conversations. Okay. So, what do you know about them? And in this example, I'm just going to use the teacher example because I told you earlier that when we get hyper focused, it does not pigeonhole us. Now, back in 2011, I was in a slump in my business and I attended a 5-week training. And I want to point out something here that if you've been listening to the podcast for a long time or you know me personally, you will hear the times that I was at my lowest. The first thing I did was I sought help. I didn't think I could afford it, but I now know I couldn't afford not to. So when my credit card was declined for a $2 cup of coffee, I hired a coach. When I found myself in a slump 3 years later, I attended a program. I hired another coach. Okay. And in that training, she had us do this process of thinking about authentically what subset of the population would you like to serve based on who you are. Now, I used to be a teacher before I fell into the mortgage space. And now I'm also a teacher, right? Full circle. But I have a lot of appreciation for teachers because they don't get paid a lot of money, and yet they're responsible for every intelligent human who goes on to make a lot of money. So why are they not rewarded financially? I don't know. So I decided I wanted to appreciate teachers. Now, as a mortgage professional, I could easily stop myself by saying a made up story, like a teacher might not be able to afford to buy the house at the price that I want to buy, right? So that's fear. So we're going to take that out of the equation. It has to be authenticity. And so I decided to create a teacher appreciation program. So that was going to be my focus. And then I called some teachers that I knew and I started getting input from them. If I was going to put some resources together, what would you like to see? And then I contacted some service providers like an insurance agent and a real estate agent. And I started having conversations around doing some teacher appreciation. And the realtor was like, oh, my mom's a teacher. I would love to participate in a teacher appreciation program. So then I called the insurance agent who told me that the insurance company he worked for had discounts for teachers. And that turned the light on. Then I thought, oh, I wonder what other service providers provide discounts for teachers. So I started trying to research it. And I couldn't find any central location where I could find all the discounted service providers for teachers. So then I thought maybe I'll create something. Maybe I could create a blog or a landing page, or maybe I could even put together a coupon booklet. And so then I thought if I wanted some more service providers who would provide discounts to teachers, let me ask the teachers what service providers they'd like to see providing discounts. And they said things like hair salons and massage therapists. And I found out there was a car wash that had a teacher discount. And I found out that on and on it goes, right? So I leveraged the relationships in my life that represent my 25%. Not once in any of these conversations did I say, if you need a lender, I'm your person, right? This was not a sales call. This was a value add call, but it was a reason to call. And this is the most important thing because most of us are told to make the calls or see the people or write the notes or whatever, but we think we're doing it to get something and that creates resistance. But from here, my insecurity was replaced with curiosity. So each conversation with the teacher was like, oh, call my house cleaner and see if they'll do a discount. And here's the name of so-and-so. I would love if they would do a discount. And so all of a sudden I'm meeting a bunch of new people. Guess what happened? In that 5 weeks, my business blew up. Not because any one of those people that I talked to had a referral for me. It's because the lights came on. It's because I started to lighten up. I started to think about how to be of value to people, not from a personal agenda of hoping I get a lead out of it, not from a fear-based strategy of over-analyzing and needing to have it all figured out. I just started having conversations. So one of the things we talk about is this idea, in my case, in this example, the teacher appreciation, that was nothing more than the catalyst for conversation. It triggered me to start to engage with people that I care about, people that are easy to talk to because they're my 25%. I genuinely like these people and I want their input. So this wasn't a sales call. This is so important for everyone to understand. None of this was about sales, okay? All of it was about getting out of my own way. And we all need that every once in a while. But what ended up happening was a snowball started creating momentum because I don't just have the conversation about the teacher appreciation program while I'm in conversation with these people. I'm also going to get to the bottom of what's going on with them. That's the frog piece, right? So I'm going to ask them about the family. I'm going to ask them what they did for fun over the weekend or what they're doing for spring break or what they're doing for summer vacation. I'm going to talk about what's fun for them. I'm going to talk about their job. I'm going to talk about what some of their goals are for 2026 or whatever year it is, right? And in that, I'm going to find something that's interesting for them. So if you're following, I start with who I like. I really dig deep into what I know about the people I like or who I want to serve. I come up with some kind of catalyst, some idea that triggers me to start having conversations. The discovery process is nothing more than I want to pick your brain about something, I want to run something by you. But when I'm in that conversation, I bring my presence. And why was I able to bring presence? Because I wasn't trying to get anything out of it. I've been here before, by the way. For 4 years prior to this experiment, I was with the coach doing the things, following the playbook, checking off the boxes. But when I look back, if I'm honest, a lot of those conversations, I was so insecure. I was forcing myself to do the thing that they said to do so I could get some deals so I could pay my bills. I wasn't present. I wasn't curious. I was just proud of myself for picking up the phone and saying hello and then hanging up and checking a box saying I did it. And it was a grind and it was not fun and it was inconsistent. And I always wondered if I was even cut out for this business because other people seem to make sales look so easy. And even to this day, I know I'm supposed to change my language, but I wouldn't consider myself a great salesperson. If it comes down to it, I'm supposed to do something to get something, it's probably not going to happen. But if I do what's fun for me because I love the people I serve and I get creative on ways to connect them with other people that can be of value to them, then I'm unleashed. I'm unstoppable. I'm like a road runner. I can't stop, right? But the other thing is that because I'm having so much fun, the lights are on. And when the lights are on, when the lighthouse is illuminated, the ships can find you. You don't chase the ships, right? The lighthouse doesn't chase the ships. The lighthouse stays still with the lights on, and the ships that show up, they're not scripted by the lighthouse. They're not scripted by me. The clients that call you, you didn't hunt them down. They just showed up when they showed up. It always seems like it's out of the blue, but this is not out of the blue. This strategy works 100% of the time. So if any of this lands for you, the question becomes, how do we apply it in your own business? And the one thing that makes the Pursuing Freedom community different is that while there is a framework, and I'm going to continue to give you the framework in the podcast episodes to come. So stay tuned because the next thing we go into after who is how. How do we communicate with our target market in a way that makes us magnetic like a lighthouse? And then when? How do we organize our time and schedule and create those boundaries that give us permission to rest and to operate as a true professional, which in my opinion, a true professional is focused, energized, present, and enthused. You're not distracted. You're not overconnected. You're not multitasking your way through your life. And you're not giving from an empty well. That to me is an outdated way of being in business. And in today's day and age, your presence is the gift. And it's the one thing that AI cannot replace. So we're going to start to unpack all of the framework in the episodes to come. So stay plugged in. But if you really need some support in taking this from a concept to a strategy that really works for you, we need to get into conversation around it because we can't really prescribe a one size fits all plan. Because if you compare yourself to how somebody else is doing it, like you can copy my teacher appreciation program, but if you don't actually have any passion for serving teachers or appreciating teachers, it's going to fall flat. It's going to feel forced. And whenever it falls flat and feels forced, you will find yourself inconsistent. And 100% of the time, when I have a conversation with someone who's thinking about joining our community and they're in a slump, we go back 60 to 90 days and we really examine how are you spending your time? What was your energy like? What was your clarity like? Did you have a plan? Did you have a schedule? Did you feel excited to show up and take action and bring value to the people you're serving? Do you know who your target market is? Because most of us are winging it. And the wild thing about this industry, like I said before, is that we could spend decades winging it and still have inconsistency in our business and still ride this seesaw from feast or famine, broke to burnout. And personally, I did that for almost a decade. It wasn't that fun, but I know what's on the other side. And I wouldn't be here giving you this podcast or creating this community if I didn't know what's really available. And only a small percentage of people are going to believe it enough to bet on themselves to get in the room. But what happens once you make that decision is the universe conspires to support you. And all of a sudden, you're looking at your life and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm having more fun than I've had in a really long time. And I don't know why, but my business is booming. And then we start making new decisions. We start to expand the vessel to hold more inside your business so that you're no longer fearing growth as an association to more exhaustion and burnout. You're getting excited about growth because you're learning that it can be easier than you can imagine. So if that sounds interesting to you, just connect with me. You can try out the academy for just $49 a month at pursuingfreedom.com/academy. I'm live twice a month in group coaching format where you can ask questions, we can start to customize the plan, and then you can kind of take that DIY approach, the self-paced approach to going through all of the pre-recorded lessons. Or if you're ready to quantum leap, get in the collective because we're live twice a week. And I also have an entire community of guest coaches that'll teach you all kinds of strategies, different personalities, different modalities. So it's not just the Erin Bradley show, which I think would get boring after a while anyway. So hop into the collective at pursuingfreedom.com/collective. If you're not sure which is for you, or maybe you're ready for VIP because you're building a team, I've got you. We've got you. This community is so awesome. And we've been ready for you for a while. So what are you waiting for? Join us. I want to hang out with you. I want to help you customize business you love that fuels the life you've only dreamed of while you have more fun than ever and more energy than you could imagine. I love you. I appreciate you. We'll see you next time.